Hi guys, welcome to the latest podcast of YarninBlak. Today I have a really great mate on, Ernie Hill. I'll get him to introduce himself very shortly, but I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm coming from. I'm broadcasting here from Ballardong on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and I would like to pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and extend that to any First Nations people that have joined us today, including my mate Ernie. Hi Ernie.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Uh,
I'm glad you could
yeah,
join us.
no worries.
Um,
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
no, cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so kaya niya Andrew panunok niya Ernie yung maaman Wardandi Ballardong. So I'm from the Ballardong Wardandi tribe over here in yung country in Bunbury Nation. Yeah, a bit about myself. So background is in mental health, suicide prevention. Uh, um, yeah, many hats, many hats. So I don't know where to begin. I don't think the 40 minutes is long enough just for my
Uh,
introduction. But other than that, yeah, just it's a bit empowering everyone to become the better them. So pretty much that's what I do. So yeah, I'm ready for you to throw the questions at me, really.
cool. So what got you interested in mental health as a profession?
I'm not sure if it's more what got me interested, or it's I believe that it's a path that chooses us. In terms of mental health itself, wasn't something that I was planning on heading down. But I somehow found myself down that path. And so once I got into it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is where I'm needing to be at this point in time. Because we do know that mental health plays a big impact in everyone's life. And without a solid mental health, it keeps us unbalanced. So it's about balancing us out equally. But yeah, that's what chose me, and I just took it and just rode with it. It's life's journey, so I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah. And for a while you were a mental health first aid instructor too, weren't you? Or you still are?
Absolutely. So, yeah, so back in 2009 is when I first was accredited, and so I did my training down in Albany,
Yeah.
WA. And so yeah, just from there, it's over many years, and I had to renew or refresher type stuff because things happen in between, life happens, and things get busy. But it's good to do to continually be refreshed on that because things change and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, mental health, and I think not only the mental health side of stuff, but also the suicide prevention. Being amongst the oldest living culture in the world, the most researched culture in the world, but yet where in terms of suicide itself, it's up there. And so I think that's and we've all been impacted directly or indirectly within our lives. So that's pretty much what chose me. As much as I was in that mental health background, it's sort of my path was steered along that suicide prevention. But then things started steering a little bit. As you go down one path, things take a bit of a turn here and there. That where you lead to are today.
Yeah. How does community take on board suicide prevention?
Um, well, I think it's a lot more um, talked about now because it's constantly in your face and whatnot. Whereas before, it was one of those taboo conversations where they didn't know how to, or community didn't know how to address a loss through suicide. Because when you go through it yourselves, and then when you have a loss through other causes, you have the support, you have the comfort from community. But when it's a loss through a suicide, people don't know how to have that conversation, don't know how to approach, don't know how to grieve. So they tread lightly, and sometimes you don't necessarily get the actual full-on comfort from community because they don't know how. So it's just a matter of making that conversation a normal conversation. That a loss is a loss, and we need to try to prevent losing our loved one through suicide.
Yeah. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up. So I'm born northern WA, just 45 minutes out of Perth, east in the wheat belt. But I also grew up down here in Bunbury, so down in Wardani country. So a bit of my life in the wheat belt, some here on saltwater country in Wardani country. But I also did some of my schooling up in the Pilbara. So I've been around. So I also did a bit of studying over in Wagga, and yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Wagga's
that's
a,
the main that I identify.
yeah, because you did the Jarong program, didn't you? The
I did.
Yeah. How was that studying
Yeah,
in Dubbo? So studying in Wagga.
Wagga. Apart from the horrible weather,
Yeah.
wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I think just knowing, being in tune spiritually as well, just being, being mindful of what's out there, and in order to protect your own mental well-being, and by being welcomed appropriately, and it's quite strong throughout Australia. So it's just being mindful of what country that you're going into. But other than that, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Mm. Where's your favourite place that you love to go to?
My favourite place.
Yeah.
So my go-to place, even when I'm feeling down now, is up the hill to the Wellington National Park, along Leonard Drive. There's a beautiful
Yeah.
walkway there, so I do a lot of my narrative bushwalks along that river. So even, it does not matter what time of the year, hot, cold, wet, wet, dry, it doesn't really matter. When I'm feeling down, when I need my battery recharged or my cup refilled, that's where I go, just for my time out. So just up the hill, as much as I'm from saltwater country and being Wardandi, I am also, I don't swim saltwater. I'm drawn to that fresh water. I'm always freshwater. So I think that fresh water come out of me from being born out in the northern way.
There's lots of words thrown around recently, like reconciliation and cultural safety. What does reconciliation mean to you?
Reconciliation. Um, it's about coming together, and acknowledging First Nation people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. There's time and time again that we as Aboriginal people always have to adjust and fit into the Western world, and we have done. But this, it's like, okay, what about us? And so I believe, reconciliation is also finding that third space, that Aboriginal space, and then you've got that Western side of thing. But there's a common space that we can find together. And to me, that's where reconciliation is. Why wouldn't you want to embrace the oldest living culture in the world? Be a part of that and celebrate that. And that's where I'm coming from in terms of me personally. That you'd want to embrace that, celebrate it. Yeah.
Do you think the concept of reconciliation has changed since the last referendum?
Absolutely. Disappointing in terms of the outcome of the yes vote and whatnot. I mean, but a lot of times it's changing. Where you look, for instance, now when we're looking at Australia Day,
Yeah.
regardless of what you call it, Australia Day, Survival Day, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of places changing. For instance, take your hat off to the likes of the Woolies and the big Dubs and all that kind of stuff, and the Audis. And so I see that there's a massive big change in terms of moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good start where we can start with reconciliation right there.
When you're at school, how much Aboriginal studies did you learn at school?
Good question. So good old social studies was my Aboriginal studies were pretty much learning about Captain Cook himself and Botany Bay. That's the closest that I've got to the Aboriginal studies. If you didn't live and breathe it yourself, then that was your introductory to Aboriginal studies.
Yeah. Do you think it's changed over time, or do you think we still need a long way to go?
Look, in terms of everything, there's a lot of progress and a lot of things that we can do to improve. But we've come a long way in terms of understanding and accepting. We've got the language that's reviving, being revived back in the schools and all that. Our young ones are starting to learn that. A lot more on-country stuff, a lot of nature plays have been happening. There's stuff that we as Aboriginal people have been doing for thousands of years, for instance, grounding and whatnot, going out and doing that. You've got doctors that are now starting to prescribe their clients or their patients with what they call green prescription, a bit of grounding, getting out of country, just kicking your shoes off and connecting. So, we've been doing that for thousands of years. So, take a leaf out of our book and, that's what's been happening. So, yeah, there has been changes and in the right direction, but still a long way to go, obviously. But like everything else, over time, we'll get there.
Yeah. What's your current job at the moment?
So what I'm current job? So I run my own business. So my business is called Ballardong. So within the local language, Mulligan means growing. So I'm growing a lot of stronger mindsets to make positive change. So I'm looking at a lot of negative emotions. So your anger, sad, hurt, fear, guilt, and shame. So identifying those negative emotions and removing those and getting the positive learnings from what happened then, and then moving it to now. So so not only I'm doing that, so I'm doing coaching, so mindset coaching, lifestyle coaching. I'm doing hypnotherapy as well. I do a lot of narrative bushwalk, so a lot of my walking and talking are done out in country instead of done in a clinical setting where, you know, sitting behind four walls. All of that stuff is done out in country where we're walking and talking, and sometimes you don't even know that you walk like 10, 15, sometimes 20 Ks in the day because you're walking and talking. Mind you, the next day you feel it, but again, you don't understand. Yeah, you don't really realize that you walk that because you've talked most of the time. Yes, I do a lot of that, and a lot of rites of passage camps and getting them out and getting a lot of people out in country. It doesn't matter what walks of life you come from, black, white, or in between. It's open to everyone.
Yeah. And you'll give me all the details of your business so I can pop down into the the bottom of the YouTube.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. Yeah, I'll send you my details and the website and whatnot. So feel free to check it out.
Yep, and I'll get everyone to have a look at it as well. I mentioned before the other concept that gets thrown around a lot about cultural safety. What makes you feel culturally safe when you want to access mainstream services?
Being heard, being listened. Not necessarily being listened, but being heard and moving forward. But being in a space where I'm comfortable enough so that I can speak up without being felt as though I'm being judged and whatnot. But it's also in a safe place where you can. It's about learning, but provide everyone a safe place where they can ask those questions and make the changes. Because how else do we make changes? How else do we make accept them if we're not going to be comfortable to ask those type of tricky questions, and to that pretty much that really. So for me, so cultural safety is huge on all sides, regardless of what side of the coin you're looking at. But for our own mob, we need to feel more safe and secure in mainstream.
How do you define eldership for mob?
Eldership for me is not necessarily age, but it's also your status that you hold within community and within your family structure. I mean, a lot of times, some families, for instance, my family has also been robbed from our elders. So my grandparents passed away when they were very young. My grandmother was 45. So we had there was a time there that, if we're looking at age eldership, then there wasn't classed as an elder. But yet they had the rules and the rights and the responsibilities to be that spokesperson for our family that can speak for family. And to me, that's the elder in that family is right, have the rights to, as long as they're accepted. But then it also comes back to having that being that the age, the wisdom and whatnot, and the age appropriate, but also having the understanding, the respect and the knowledge, because a lot of our elders can have that but don't have the respect. But it's about bringing that respect back. That to me defines eldership.
Yeah, and eldership's different than leadership. So,
absolutely,
how would you kind of define for yourself and for other people leadership?
Well, if you're looking at leadership, I think sometimes it's our elders in the making. It's those who's training to be, next in line to be our elders. So as we're walking alongside our elders, not necessarily saying move out of the way. It's walking on the side that we can learn the path. We'll learn that journey. Understand and acknowledge and respect the path that our elders walked on. And our leaders are walking inside that, and then that way moving forward, as they pass on that baton moving forward, then we've got the understanding, the respect, and knowing the hard work that our elders have done in order for us to acknowledge and continue their fight. To me, that's leadership. And sometimes not necessarily leading from the front. A good leader also can lead from behind, and it's acknowledging and taking on full responsibilities for your community, in terms of leadership itself.
Yeah. Sometimes pushing people up the hill or
absolutely
setting up the platform when turning on the light for the person.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's just helping them, guide them, and push them, give them that little bit of nudge, in that right direction. It's leadership for me.
Racism. Have you ever experienced racism?
Yeah, I think we've all experienced it somewhat. Whether we take that on board and whatnot, it's up to me. I mean, me personally, I haven't. I'll, apart from the shopping centre, you've walked around and whatnot, and you've been watched. I find that a bit of a joke. So a bit of a story actually. I was walking through one of our local IGAs, and every aisle, I went in there for just a few items, so I didn't need a basket and whatnot, nor a trolley. Carrying them, every aisle I went to, the manager followed me. So as I was piling up all of this, I was like, okay, dude, if you're going to be following me, at least help me carry some of my stuff. He was gone. So it's a matter of how we respond to that as well. There's two ways we can respond to it, and any reaction we have, it's up to us. But I tend to, okay, that's them. I feel sorry for somebody that's a racist. Need a lot more education, but I'm not going to let that get me down, because you're not going to dampen my spirits, because I'm going to rise above that.
Yeah. There's lots of people finding out about their Aboriginality, or starting to explore a little bit more about finding themselves. If someone came to you and said, I want to find my family and I don't know where to start, what advice would you give them?
Okay, very good question. I think I'd send them back to like the native titles to our PVCs and whatnot. Going through. Okay, go back to, for instance, the Southwest Land and Sea Council here in WA. In Noongar country. If somebody was asked me, I've got morning trace, and that's where I would always. But speak to our elders. Because somebody knows somebody. If as some of the questions that we ask, who you mob, where you from, that kind of stuff gets the conversations going.
Yeah. Self-esteem for young people, it can be quite difficult in knowing where you come from. The young people that you work with, are they really connected to culture, or are they just starting to learn about it, or a bit of both?
So when you look at us, the well-being as a holistic approach, if you're missing some of that culture, you're missing an element in your life. So, some of that is broken. And so some of our young ones are a little bit confused in terms of moving forward. Yes, they do know of culture, but they don't know that some of the stuff that they're doing, there's some of the practices that they're doing today are still some of that traditional practices that we've been doing for thousands of years. For instance, when they're going and hunting and whatnot, the time of the day that whether they're marining, for instance, for out this seasons now when they're looking for marins, they just think, okay, that's just natural. But some of those practices we've been doing for thousands of years. But yeah, you're right. So if I look back at the staircase of life in terms of the rites of passage, in order for our young ones to step up and to play the part to become young men and women, they need to take that staircase of life, But sometimes we can't take the next step, because sometimes our elders are also don't know how to become elders, so they're holding that steps up. So it's also teaching our elders to become that eldership, and how to take on that rules and responsibilities and the rights that they can have in order for them to take their next step. Then it frees up the steps for us down the bottom for our young ones to start making their steps up. So that's some of the stuff that I do out on the rites of passage camps. It's just teaching them how to become the better young men and women for themselves, and how they can do that, which includes having that cultural element attached to that. Because not only we're looking at the land and the sea, we're also talking about the skies and everything in between, and we're talking about the connections. Because when I talk to community, non-Aboriginal people as well. Okay, what is the first thing we do when we go overseas? You get to embrace yourself into that culture. You get to learn some of their language. Okay, well, what do you do here in Australia? Oh, no, we don't know it. Well, how about we do the same thing? How about learning that local language? Even if it's just by saying hello and that kind of stuff. But embracing and understanding of what's the strong culture that's in your own backyard. So that's part of, like I said, part of the stuff that I do on my narrative bushwalks, but also the rites of passage stuff is just introducing them to country as well.
Yeah. I love that metaphor about the staircase. I really like that.
There you go.
I think you're right in terms of, and I never heard it until you've just said it then about if you can't move the elders on a little bit into eldership, then
Eldership.
the staircase is kind of stuck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I quite like that.
It's not that they take their next step that we can move up as well.
Yeah. If I could give you a magic wand and zillions of dollars, what's something in Aboriginal affairs you would like to change?
I think, and to me, it'll be at that grassroots, that community level where things will change. Embracing, empowering our young ones to be the stronger them, allowing our future leaders to be them. So that's where I would spend my money is empowering our young ones to become our future leaders. And regardless of what area in life that they want to choose to become, that's where my money will be. A lot of the times dollars get spent up at these high level manager levels, bums on seat type stuff. And by the time money do get to community, it's not enough to make a change. So to me, money needs to be at grassroots level, and that's where I would put my millions of dollars, more the money that you would give me.
Zillions. I've got zillions.
Well, there you go. We've fixed the problem, brother. We fixed the problem.
Yeah. Um, you've worked in government settings and in community settings. What's the difference? Because a lot of our listeners wouldn't know what like an ACHO is, for example, and working in community with community compared to working with government. What's been your experiences?
But to me, your whole job description and whatnot is set out for you within government. So there's a lot of red tapes and whatnot to jump, and there's a lot of restrictions in terms of, okay, this is how you do it according to KPIs. I mean, we still got KPIs in ACOs, but when it's become Aboriginal community controlled, whether it be Aboriginal community controlled organisation or Aboriginal community controlled health organisations, less is coming from that grassroots level. It's becoming from the community members themselves, and so that's where being a part of an ACHO as well, it helps me, drive because I'm driving it for my community. That then I'm doing the change, making the change for them. I'm being their voice as well. However, so that's the reason also why I went out and started my own business. As much as working for government, but also working for ACOs, we still need to apply and for funding, and we compete against each other for funding in the ACO field as well. And some of those funding also come with a lot of restrictions, a lot of red tapes, a lot of KPIs that sometimes not necessarily address the actual problem. So my time, starting my business, I sat back and I thought, okay, what, I'd rather address this, and this because you're not really doing it. And then I'm not stuck behind these red tape and or restricted to those type of KPIs. I'm actually hitting some of those true problems, true concerns. Yes. So, if I had that money, that's where, or, I know that I would make a big change. And I know a lot of other ACOs and also a lot of other Aboriginal businesses can do. And they do because they live and breathe it. Yeah.
Now, you're also a committee member of the Bunbury Basketball Association and the chairperson of Catch a Dream, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about
on the state Aboriginal Health Board. So Catch a Dream is so with a good friend, she so Joey came up and started Catch a Dream, which helped apply for a lot of funding for Aboriginal businesses, small businesses, for instance, like myself and others that's starting out. So what Catch a Dream will do, will apply for funds that does all the administrative side of stuff, like the acquittals, lodging those, and so the money goes directly straight to that business, to do their job that they were set out to community, and then Catch a Dream will look after that administration side of stuff, like I said, the acquittals, all that kind of stuff, which then their time is done with that, and the Aboriginal business as time is done by looking after what they're set out to do, and that's where the money goes. So that's and like we all know, it's hard competing against. So if you know somebody that knows how to rock, it's easier, and so that's what Catch a Dream does: look for the funds and help apply for, and then that money goes directly to the Aboriginal business, and they will look after the administration side of stuff.
How do you think the mental health system in 2024 actually caters for Aboriginal people?
I think again we've come a long, like I said earlier, we've come a long way. Still got a long way to go, but again, it stems from how do we make changes? We need to go back to community, and that's where the issues and concerns are. It's our loved ones that's dealing with them, with our loved ones. Our family members, the parents, the grandparents are the one that spend every waking moment looking after our family members that's been challenged with mental illness. And it's not until we hit rock bottom and things get really tricky that we have to get them in for help. So to me, that's where a lot of that stuff needs to be addressed, is more at community level. Listen to community, listen to those families that's going through that, and not by just looking at your guidelines and whatnot. Just listen to community. That's how we make changes, because they have spent some time in mental health, the psych, they call them frequent flyers. And you know what? They're more than just frequent flyers. They're someone's loved ones. They're not someone that's just going to keep coming in and out. How do we prevent them coming in and out? That's where we need to start looking at. Stop having them coming in and out for that.
Yeah.
And some of that time is done on that holistic approach, even if it just means they need to spend more time out in country. They need to spend more time out with family. It's some of that stuff that we need to look at.
Have you seen a decrease in suicide in your community in the last 10 years or so?
Decrease?
Decrease. No.
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 I would like to say yes, but no. Realistically, no. Too many funerals after funerals are done by suicide. Whether it be a lot of people are starting to talk about it a bit more, that it's out there, that people are starting, like I said, talk about it and saying that their loved one did go by suicide. But yeah, it's quite rife out there. We need to change. We need to make changes. We need to start talking about it. We need to start helping. Make those accountable, those organisations that have funding to prevent suicide, making them accountable and getting out there and doing that. And like I said, even if that means, our men, our women getting back and doing cultural activities, having them have a voice, being heard and listened to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's to those families that's going through that. And not by just looking at your guidelines and whatnot. Just listen to community. That's how we make changes. Because they have spent some time in mental health, the psych, they call them frequent flyers. And you know what? They're more than just frequent flyers. They're someone's loved ones. They're not someone that's just going to keep coming in and out. How do we prevent them coming in and out? That's where we need to start looking at. Stop having them coming in and out for that. And some of that time is done on that holistic approach. Even if it just means they need to spend more time out in country, they need to spend more time out with family. It's some of that stuff that we need to look at.
Have you seen a decrease in suicide in your community in the last 10 years or so?
Decrease?
Decrease. No.
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 I would like to say yes, but no. Realistically, no. too many funerals after funerals are done by suicide. Whether it be a lot of people are starting to talk about it a bit more, that it's out there, that people are starting, like I said, talk about it and saying that their loved one did go by suicide. But yeah, it's quite rife out there. We need to change. We need to make changes. We need to start talking about it. We need to start helping. Make those accountable. Those organisations that have funding to prevent suicides, making them accountable and getting out there and doing that. And like I said, even if that means, our men, our women getting back and doing cultural activities, having them have a voice, being heard and listened to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my opinion anyway.
We've just got a couple of final questions. And one of the questions is, what is something that people don't really know about Ernie?
Sorry?
About you. What is something that someone doesn't really know about Ernie?
Very good question. I think it's more the many hats that I wear, and then the actual work that I do within my own business. What I will do, I will go above and beyond to help my community members, regardless of who they are. And for instance, if it's in suicide prevention, that kind of stuff, I would rather use my time removing somebody from a fair crisis, removing somebody from an incident and whatnot, instead of using my time burying them. So something that somebody need to know or would like to know about me is that, yeah, I'm approachable. But at the same time, we're going to walk country. We're going to head out in country. That's where we're going to do it. It's going to help me fill my cup. Yeah, so if you ever need to find me and they need to get away, I'm happy to get away with you. Yeah, let's go country.
My final question is, what would you like people to walk away with from our little yarn this morning?
What would they like to? I think knowing that I'm approachable, and like I said, what we talked about, we're going to drop my email and my website and whatnot, my details there. But knowing that I'm approachable, and can help them. So it's knowing that we all can be empowered to become their future leaders, regardless of what. And that's where I want people to walk away with, knowing that you can do it. With the support. Just reach out regardless. And a lot of the times a stranger in the street can help us a lot more as well. So have your voice. Don't be too afraid to use your voice. Speak up. And that way I would like for you to be empowered to become the future leaders as well.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad to actually get to see you. Our listeners probably wouldn't know that I've probably known you for about 13 years now. And
yeah,
I love talking to you, man. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. And guys, I'll put all the details about Ernie into the bottom of the YouTube profile. So guys, I'll see you shortly. I'll see you in the next podcast. And thanks, Ernie. Bye.